All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Oh, you get started? Okay, hey. Lesson 1. This is lesson 1 of a 12-week series. Kind of short on people tonight, but I know they'll be trickling in. So tonight's lesson is conscious parenting. Okay? Conscious parenting. And I always like to ask the question with that, even though I'm teaching them, what is conscious parenting? What do y'all think conscious parenting is? Oh, you can't talk? Okay. What do you think conscious parenting is?
I'm just trying to type it.
Huh? Conscious parenting.
Thoughtful.
Huh?
Thoughtful parenting, parenting with a plan or a purpose.
Purpose. Yes. That's a part of it. That is a part of it. The important piece of conscious parenting is if you're dealing with children that have trauma, if you're dealing with children who have problems, if you're dealing with special needs children, conscious parenting to me means when you walk into the room, when you come into their presence, you have to be conscious of who they are. So a lot of times as parents, we are conscious of ourselves. We think about work, cutting the grass, washing the car, cleaning up, but we're not conscious of our impact that we have on our children, okay? So being a conscious parent means you have to be mindful of what you bring to the relationship with your children. The energy that you bring, the timing, the pace, your facial expression, your body language, proximity to them. A lot of times parents will come in and just don't acknowledge the children. I mean, most people don't even realize this, but you know what the national average time a parent spends with a child? A day? 13 minutes. 13 minutes a day is what the national average is. It may have changed. It's probably a lot less now. I would say it's getting worse before it's getting any better, because most of the time parents are playing the video games just as much as the kids are playing the video games, or watching TV, or playing games on their phones. So we are not conscious of having or involving ourselves in relationships with them. Because what I always say, parents, we create bonds, children attach. And without the bonding, there can be no attaching. But a lot of times now in this field, you hear a lot about attachment. They'll talk about trauma-informed or attachment, but they don't look at the bonding. You take the child out of the house, you put the child in all these special programs, they go to detention, they may go to the hospital, they're going to go to DBT, MST, all these programs, but what work is done at home?
Exactly.
Where the bonding is supposed to be, where the security is supposed to be, where the safety is supposed to be, it's not there. Because most of the time we don't have conscious parents. Conscious parents do two things, and I always say this. Job number 1, take care of yourself, mind, body, and spirit, and teach your children values and standards. It's unfortunate, and I think I'm working with a parent now who has their foot pedal to the metal. I'm not going to say foot to the brake, just pedal to the metal on consequences. And how have they defined the relationship if everything needs a consequence?
They haven't.
They have. They've defined the relationship based on exactly an adversarial relationship versus a bonding relationship.
Right.
Because if I consequence you all the time for what you do, pretty soon you're not going to want to be around me.
Right.
Because you mess up, I'm going to get you.
Right. Just like a penal system.
Exactly. So being conscious, we have to be conscious of, we bring something to the relationship with our children. We're teaching our children, whether we're teaching the values or standards or not, we're still teaching. Right? So if I teach my child that relationship with me is punitive to you, that's what you're going to get from me. If you mess up, I'm going to get you. So now that child's going to avoid me the older they get. The child's going to lie to me. The child's going to try to manipulate me because why? Because they don't want the consequence. But we have defined the relationship that way. And the hard part is, I'm working with a mom now, is how do I get her to pump her brakes and stop that? Oh no, he needs a consequence. But I said, but it's not working. If consequences would work, I would be out of a job. If consequences was the answer, there would be no need for parent coaching, parent education.
Jail.
Because no jails or anything, because everybody gets a consequence. And I like what Brian Post said. He said, if what you're doing is working, you shouldn't have to keep doing it. The fact that you have to keep doing it over and over again says it's not working. Change occurs through a process. The process will dictate the outcome. Right?
Yeah.
Change occurs through a process. Process dictates outcome. But most people are what? Behavior focused.
Mm-hmm.
See, if I see these behaviors, these are the consequences. So now behavior focused versus process focused. Process focus on building a relationship, healthy relationship, teaching values and standards, which takes what? Time. It takes relationship. It takes, and it goes to the quality of the relationship versus the punitive parent. And unfortunately, when I ask parents, you know, in their state, because I gotta have this consequence, where is that coming from for you? Why do you feel the need that everything has to be so punitive with your child? They more than likely related back to their own childhood and how they were raised.
Yeah.
Or some type of military. It's one of the two. It's one of the two, because everything has to be punitive. There's a consequence. Yes, there should be a consequence for behaviors, but shouldn't it be a natural consequence?
Yeah.
If there's to be a consequence? Because
What's a
my
natural
job
consequence?
is to teach values and standards.
What's a natural consequence?
A natural consequence, the example. Your child's having trouble going in the store. They steal when they go in the store, right? So a natural consequence for me would be, I go in the store with them. I walk with them. I hold their hand. I'm with them.
So no independence.
They're telling me they're overwhelmed in the store. Their behavior says they can't handle the store.
Right.
So the natural consequence brings them to me versus pushing them away. Some parents would say, I'm gonna call the police. That's a control consequence. You know, you can define that. But a natural consequence builds on the relationship versus making it punitive, if that makes sense to you. Because a lot of times we will either threaten them with the police, threaten them with jail, or try to embarrass them in public. We'll do all these things because these are the things that were either done to us, or we feel as though it's going to prevent that child from stealing and lying, and it usually doesn't. You know, yes, the child's not going to be happy with you, especially if they're 12, 13 years old, that you have to go in the store with them, and you might want to hold their hands or have them put their hand on the basket. But hey, you have to earn that ability to be independent. Okay? That makes sense?
Yes.
Unfortunately, we have a lot of people who don't do that because, why? It's easier. It's easier for us. It makes us feel better as parents when we do something to the child.
Power.
Control. Power and control. So what are we doing? We're teaching the child. You know, you hear children say, well, when I get older,
Can't wait.
I'm going to do what I want to do. When I get older, you can't tell me what to do. I'm grown now. But we fail to realize that we taught that behavior, that mindset, that mentality by how our interactions with them. Because we create a bond, child attaches. And we're going to talk about secure attachment, insecure attachment, and ambivalent attachment, you know, in later lessons. But we as parents create those relationships. You know, it's unfortunate, you know, for me, a lot of times in families, you know, you have some families who are very distant. You don't see them, they don't call you, they don't talk to you at all, you know. But at a funeral or a party, they show up, you know. But that's their teaching of that's how they value relationship with you. You got some families that are real close. They get together every weekend, or every Sunday, every time something going on, they're together. You know, that's the family dynamic there, okay? But the whole thing is, being a conscious parent, you have to remember that it's process focused versus outcome focused. Process focused means I'm conscious of what I bring to relationship. I'm responsible for what I bring to the relationship. And if my child is having problems, then I have to own some of that myself.
Okay.
What did I do to contribute or contaminate this relationship? Should be a conscious decision or conscious question we need to ask. But a lot of times parents are what? Blame the child.
Right.
Consequent the child. Drug the child. Right? Because the child's fault. Child was born a blank sheet of paper, but at the end of the day, any problems that child has is their problem.
Right.
Now how does that work? How does that fix anything?
Does.
How does that change anything? What it does is it creates more drama or trauma within the relationship with that child, because like I said, as they get older and they feel the punitive consequence all the time, they'll eventually not want to be around you. They'll avoid you as much as possible. I've known kids to even move out of state. And for the parent who's that way, they'll say, good riddance, I'm glad he gone. Right? But then we think about, well, why you call your mama? Well, why you call your uncle, but you don't ever come see me? Well, why you do this and don't do that? You know, it's like the quality of the relationship. That's what it boils down to. You know, our job is to teach values and standards. So, you know, I like this saying. I said this at the one of the last classes we had. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People says, begin with the end in mind. That's habit 2. Begin with the end in mind. So if I'm a conscious parent, I'm going to do that. And what that means is this. Think about, what do you want your children to say about you at your funeral? Write those things down. Do you want them to say that you were present or not present? Do you want them to say that you engaged in their life, you participated, you helped, you taught them values and standards? Or do you want them to say nothing? Do you want them to show up? Because see, then keep in mind, at your funeral, what you say and do doesn't even matter at that point. It's been said and done. And done and done and done. Right? So if you want the positive things said and done, then guess what you have to create today? Positive. If you want them to say loving Father, you have to be loving. My favorite quote, one of my favorite quotes is, giving begins the receiving process. What I give is what I'm going to receive. And most parents have a problem with that because we have expectations. And that, I was going to say that, my friend, that really is the problem a lot of times. Children are very consistent in their behaviors. If they're whipping in the wind, if they're out of control, if they're acting a certain way, it's not the first time they've done it, especially when I come in the home. I'm not surprised. If your child is yelling, screaming, he does it all the time. If they're stealing, they do it all the time. There's nothing new. But know what the problem is? Not with the behavior. Where's the problem? Expectations. Right? Now the child gets older. What do? We raise the expectations. So this is the parent who's not conscious. Right? Now here's what happens in relationships too. This is funny. I was in a home today. What does respect mean? And the kid shrugs their shoulders, or they give some weak answer that's not true. And I said to the mom, is that what you taught him what respect means? She says, no, that's not what I taught him. I said, so now do you see where the problem is? Do you see where the problem is? Your expectation of respect is here. His understanding of respect is here. So you see the problem? You're teaching here, but his understanding is here. So guess what? His behaviors are here, and your expectations are here. And who gets in trouble for that?
He does.
Who gets blamed?
The child.
The child. 100% of the child. And here's the thing that's interesting too. Children are 100% emotional 100% of the time when it comes to their parents. When you speak, your children are emotional. Now, we're speaking to them, and we know that they have a deficit they don't understand, but now it's all their fault. You know? And I got a case I'm working with now. The kid said, I can't do anything right. Basically, he said, Dad, I can never please you. I don't know what you want from me. That's what the kid said. I don't know what to do. Children are consistent in their behaviors, but we have expectations. To the point this father says, I'm your father, and I expect you to apologize to me by 5 o'clock. He don't even know what he did wrong. So anytime I ask your child, what does respect mean? And we haven't laid that basic foundation of a value, then there's a problem. There's going to be problems in communication, right? There's going to be problems in understanding. And people live, write this one down, people live to their level of understanding, not to their level of knowledge. We live to our level of understanding, not to our level of knowledge. Now, what do we have a lot of times? We have expectations. And we see the child whipping in the wind. They're not understanding. They're not doing it right. But we expect them to change. We expect them to be different. So now, what's the answer a lot of times? Medication. Or corporal punishment. Or go to your room. All of these things are not what a conscious parent would do. Because guess what? If we're in relationship, how many people is it? Two. If we're in relationship, there's 2 of us, right? So why is it all my fault? If we're having misunderstandings. If I'm not consistent. If I hear you today and don't hear you tomorrow, why is it all my fault as a child? Especially, and here's something too, we're going to talk a little bit more about this when we get into the brain, is the last part of the brain to grow and develop is the part of the brain that gives you the ability to predict consequences for your behavior. That's the last part of the brain to grow. Did y'all hear me? The ability to predict consequences for your behaviors is the last part of the brain to grow. Now, what part of the brain do you want a 5-year-old to have? Take a guess. The ability to predict consequences for their behaviors.
So you want them to have it, but it's not
You
there.
want them to have it. But that's the last part of the brain that grows. And that part of the brain stops growing at the age of 21. But we want a 5-year-old to get it. So some days they're going to jump on the sofa. Right? And some days they might not jump on the sofa. Didn't we just talk about this last week? Why are you doing it again? Now you're going to lose your toys. Now you go into your room. Right? Or we'll get the parent that says stop 10 times. Stop, 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 stop. And they'll do that every day. Stop, 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 stop. And then when you get to 10, they want to pop them or they want to send them to their room. We want to take something from them, which causes what? More stress. Causes the child to stress out even more. You know? And a parent was talking to me a couple of days ago. She said, oh, so you're saying that we shouldn't consequent our children? No, that's not what I'm saying. I said, but does consequences work? If what you're doing is effective, then you shouldn't have to keep doing it. So if the consequences are working, then I don't need to be here. But if the consequences aren't working, should you try something different? And what's the difference I'm asking parents to do? Work on the relationship. Build a relationship. Teach values and standards. Okay? So the kids jumping on the sofa today, and then they're not doing it tomorrow, but they're doing it next week, and then they're touching your stuff, then they're on your phone, and they're always doing something. What should you teach them? What's the one value you should teach them?
Self-control.
Huh?
Self-control.
One value. It's a value. Respect. Respect. Right? I'm not going to just come over here and pick up your drink and start drinking out of it because I'm thirsty. Why?
Because I respect you.
But if I haven't taught my child that, and that's my daddy's, then I'm going to just go get it. Well, that's my daddy's. I can get some of his. Because we haven't taught them respect. Right? Is it respectful when they're jumping on the sofa? No. We'll say, stop, 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 stop. Don't do that. And they'll find 1,500 other things that they can do that you didn't say stop to. But if you say respect, that covers everything. Because now the question is, are you being respectful when you behave this way? And then you wait for an answer. Did I teach you to act like that? Now you wait for an answer. But if you say stop, 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 you're going to be stopping for the next 10 years, which most parents do. They wear themselves out. They get frustrated to the point we have parents in here saying, I want him out of my house. Lock him up. I'm going to file a chintz petition. I don't want to deal with him no more. They fail to realize that how many people in a relationship?
2.
So is it 100% the kid's fault when things go wrong? When things run in the ditch? When things run in the ditch in your relationships, is it all your fault or the other person's fault, or can we both own something? So a conscious person knows I have a situation in my home with my child, and my job is to teach my child, right? Therefore, I need to step back and say, what is the value, what is the standard that I need to teach? That's why I'm taking a step back. Conflict is normal. But if I step back to think, to figure out what do I need to teach before I engage, now I'm conscious, right? I'm conscious. But if I see you doing something wrong and I run in the room and I lay the smack down on you, and I'm yelling at you and I'm fussing at you and I'm threatening you, then am I conscious? No. Write this down. Negative behaviors for parents and children come from an unconscious place. Negative behaviors, be it parent or child, comes from an unconscious place.